So Future Redeem's combat, in my opinion, is a huge step up from the base game. Fusion arts work exactly as intended, union combos allow for fan service super moves, and chain attacks are just as broken as they always were. Even so, if you're struggling to defeat some of the super bosses, now that our beloved Double Signifer and Lucky 7 strats are gone, then worry not, as I'm about to fill you in on the best damage strategy to kick all of the super bosses' asses. As always though, before we jump into all of that, if you find this video useful and want to stay up to date with all the latest on the channel, I'd appreciate it if you'd click that subscribe button and notification bell, as it helps me out a ton. With all that out of the way, let's destroy some super bosses. Especially Bob. Fuck Bob. So to deal OOGA BOOGA big damage, we first need to set up our build. Firstly, set up your union combos as so. The most important one here is that we pair both A and Rex together, which grants 150% damage buff to toppled or launched enemies. Whilst the buff is nice, the reason we're pairing these two together is that they both provide by far the most damage output out of all of the party members, and will be the union combo we go for at the end of our chain attack. For the others, realistically, you can run whatever you prefer, but personally, I recommend both Matthew and Shulk, leaving Nikol and Glimmer. You get a 25% damage buff at the start of chain attacks per unity combo used, and so having Matthew and Shulk start off the fight with one is a great way to start ramping that damage up, as well as keeping your breakers healthy at the start of the fight through the awakening buff. Glimmer and Nikol both overall have the least damage out of the group, so shoving them to one side also works, and whilst their unity skill might seem underwhelming at first glance, the damage it provides can really ramp up over long fights, like slow and steadies. You can also make an argument for the pseudo Kaiser zone and extended buff duration. Depending on which boss you're fighting, one may be better than the other, so choose accordingly. Next up, let's take a look at each character's setup, and feel free to pause the video and copy it down if you need to. First up, we have Matthew, whose main purpose is going to be providing the party with power charge. By combining his energy boost and revolt uppercut into a fusion art, you can get access to a party-wide power charge during each round of your chain attack, which, along with the swelling blessing gem, allows you to hit damage cap numbers. Secondly, make sure you give Matthew a break brooch, as he is by far your most reliable source of break, as thanks to his skill at Flashing Fists, Matthew has access to his break far more often than Shulk. Lastly, we're gonna give Matthew the Strategy Manual Volume 13. This is primarily for his heroic chain, which is Marsh's effect, lowering his own TP and raising everyone else's. This will allow you to keep spamming away his power charge art with no risk of him building up too much TP, whilst also building up everyone else's, to obtain amazing after amazing chain orders. Additionally, to further accentuate this, I also recommend resetting Matthew's affinity growth and ignoring his skill which boosts his TP, as we want it as low as possible, as whilst rare, there are circumstances where having that extra 5 TP might work against you. Second up is A, who I mentioned before will be set up as a DPS. Warped Black Brooch, Thermo Headgear and Saturni Rings are a must for accessories, along with Analyze Weakness to increase crit damage. We'll also once again be taking advantage of A's buff art to apply attack up, so Swelling Blessing to boost its power are also essential. The only other thing to mention is Strategy Manual Volume 6 for its amazing heroic chain, specifically Melia's effect. A is another character whom you want to be using each and every round to squeeze in as much DPS as possible, and her effect makes it so incredibly easy to guarantee amazings in the first couple of rounds of the chain attack. Her chain order is also decent, increasing the chain attack damage amount, but try to go for this one last to make sure you can take advantage of the critical rate up buff. This then brings us on to Nikol, who is the weakest party member to date. Seriously, in all my years of playing Xenoblade, I have never once built a character whose sole purpose is to revive others, but here we are. If you haven't tried this, give Nikol a memory locket and shield belt, along with life-saving expertise, as he'll then be able to pick up fainted party members incredibly quickly, whilst taking virtually no damage himself. If you're struggling against the Superbosses, especially the asshole known as Bob, try this, as it genuinely helps out a ton. Because his chain attack damage is so low though, we'll be using Strategy Manual Volume 3 to kick him out of the chain attack as quickly as possible. Guaranteeing an amazing is enough, and him never coming back is honestly a blessing, as it lowers the RNG of you getting back a character you don't want. If you're trying to hit as large a damage number as possible though, you can try running Volume 17 instead, as the 75% reduction to physical defense is absolutely insane, and allows your main DPS to hit even harder, but this is far less consistent. Back to Glimmer, who honestly is pretty good. Pair Burning Ballad and Great Garland together to get consistent crit chance and crit damage up buffs, the latter stacking with all the other crit damage multipliers mentioned thus far. Thermo headgear is pretty nice to give her a decent crit chance, but crystal earrings are essential and are going to be your main way of building up chain attacks. Glimmer gets her art so quickly, and the AI kinda likes to spam them, so for certain fights, these are a godsend. Speaking of which, Tactics Manual Volume 15 is straight up cheating. Firstly, it maintains the healer roll passive of not exceeding 99%, which is incredibly valuable, and increases critical hit damage by 150%. You heard that right, 150%. Plus everything else we've gone through so far. If Glimmer's chain order shows up early on, grab it, as it literally enables these strategies and basically kills bosses itself. Now on to an actual good tank class. We have Shulk. Similar to Matthew, Shulk's main job is to inflict break on the enemy as well as to stay alive, the latter of which is incredibly easy to do. Saturnia rings plus champion rings allow Shulk to easily maintain the aggro whilst evading literally every hit. His main role for this strategy, however, is tied to the Strategy Manual Volume 10, which is our main source of damage. Every time Shulk participates in a round, he multiplies the additional damage by 1.5 times, allowing you to reach damage ratios in around the 2500% range. His completion bonus to increase critical rate can also be really helpful to assist characters like himself with below average crit rates to hit them more consistently. It's also important to mention that because of his effect, like Matthew, we want to keep his TP as low as possible so that we can use it in every round. So once again, reset his affinity growth and remove that extra 5 TP. I'll make it clear why this is so important in a little bit, so just trust me on this one, okay? From the new hero of the Homs to the hero of the... Yeah, let's keep this family friendly. Rex is by far the most broken and ridiculous DPS character Monolith has ever created, and I love it. Double Spinning Edge and Cross Blaze give the highest overall damage option, so pair those two together and just chuck on as much damage as is humanly possible. Nothing more to his build than that. I also recommend Battle Manual Volume 17, as it guarantees that Rex will always be reactivated when you use him, giving you permanent access to his insane damage numbers. His normal chain order of lowering physical defense of enemies is also incredibly good, so I don't recommend changing his chain order for anything else. Now, quick spoiler warning for the endgame character. You got 3 seconds to hightail it out of here, boy. Splendid. That then just leaves us with Niall, who's left in a funny position. Considering she acts just like a hero character, I recommend just chucking as much damage onto her as possible. To make her work even more like a hero, we're going to be using the Tactics Manual Volume 14. This is basically Fiona's chain order, which refunds a portion of the chain attack gauge and grants power charge, charge, which is the reason we're running Swelling Blessing on her. Never use her first though, as the chain order can give you an additional 2 rounds on easy difficulty, one of which will be wasted if you use her first. So on to the demonstration portion of this video. At the start of the fight, you simply want to keep yourself alive, so play around A's visions and rely on Nikol and your healers to keep you alive and healthy. During this initial phase, you want to build up a chain attack as quickly as possible, ideally before the enemy enrages, but this isn't always possible. Whilst doing so, spam out certain unity combos to start raising your chain attack damage. I tend to save Shulk and Matthews though, just in case we get an early launch, which can lead to them gaining an awakening and fetching me a few items in the process, but for the other two, spam away to your heart's content. Once you have one built up, the next task at hand is to inflict break on the enemy. Ideally, we'll once again do this before the enemy enrages and complete the driver combo by both toppling and launching the fella, but if RNG doesn't lean in your favour, take any opportunity you can get, but wait until that break has been inflicted. Once it has, press that magical button and the fun truly begins. When it comes to chain orders, we realistically want to choose A's last, but for the first one, you could technically go with anyone but Niall. The highest damage ordering in theory, however, would be Glimmer first to raise critical damage, followed by Niall to raise the chain attack damage with her additional orders, then Rex to deal large damage and lower the enemy's physical defense, Shulk to get him out of the way and raise crit chance, before finishing with A and the unity combo. This ordering will be ideal in most circumstances, but as chain attacks are highly RNG dependent, make the most of what you've got. For the first order, always follow this combination of units. Shulk first to multiply the damage ratio, and then into Matthew to grant power charge and raise TP for everyone but Shulk. Followed up then by A and finish with Nikol. This will kick Nikol out of the chain attack, guarantee an amazing and refund all of the characters you chose thus far to keep rinsing and repeating through each and every order. It's also worthy to mention that if you haven't already launched the enemy, make sure to do so during this first round of your chain attack. The damage multiplier granted by launching an enemy scales based on how much of the timer is left, so for the most part, launching him during the first phase of the chain attack can actually provide you with even more damage, especially if you play your cards right. Anyway, we use Shulk first so that he can increase the damage ratio of our chain attack considerably, whilst not receiving the bonus TP from Matthew, keeping his TP low. Matthew refreshes power charge each and every round of the chain attack, whilst raising the TP of everyone else, which leaves the remaining members who are just there for damage, buffs, or support. Attempt to alternate between both A's attack up buff and Glimmer's crit damage up buff though, to get the most damage, but again, RNG depends on who you get back each round. Reg should also be your main choice to complete most orders, as he has by far the highest damage output out of all the party members. That said, and this goes for all the party members, avoid using the specific hero during their chain order, as you realistically want to maintain the power charge buff for their completion damage, which is one of the reasons we choose to use A last. As you can see though, we're dealing huge amounts of damage by rotating between our characters and choosing who's best according to the order, but even so, you'll see in a moment that I still mess up towards the end of this chain attack. The reason is that I hadn't taken off Shulk's extra 5 TP, which made me surpass the total by accident. Realistically, what you want to do in the last round is to use Shulk, Glimmer, A, and finish with Matthew. Try to finish like this every single time, as it squeezes in the most damage and leads you into typically hitting damage cap for each and every hit. Although for this chain attack, that didn't happen, but I'll have some footage in the end proving that it is possible. This will then conclude our chain attack with a huge unity combo to finish the enemy off. Keep in mind also that burst at the end of the run does add on to your overall chain attack damage, and in itself tends to reach damage cap rather easily. So along with this strategy being a great way to defeat all of the super bosses, it can also serve as an excellent way to farm EXP and obtain items from enemies. With that though, this strategy has been explained, and hopefully you'll all now be able to defeat the super bosses that terrorize Ionios and be able to flex doing so after hitting some absolutely mental damage numbers. Massive thanks to Elementary My Dear for helping me record the footage of this video. This video wouldn't have been possible without him. Hopefully, this video will have given you the information you need to defeat the super bosses, especially Bob. If you have found this video useful though, once more, I'd appreciate it if you'd click that subscribe button and notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest on the channel. That's all for today, folks, but I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out, guys.